have a very big passion for procurement. And I can spend hours talking about procurement. You know what, I fell into the role early in my career. And I just love getting good deals as well as building relationships with our supply base, you know, and I still have a lot of those relationships to this day since I've started. So I'm going to share a bit of slides. Really, it's intended to talk about a day in the life of procurement and some of the processes that we have within our universe and enterprise, just to give you an appreciation of the things that we do and the things that we look for when we are considering and evaluating suppliers and stuff. So I hope it resonates with everybody. And feel free. I did say hi, nice to meet you, to Marilyn. So feel free, you know, to use the chat at any time to ask your questions. I will try and do some deliberate pauses to try and address those questions as we go through the presentation. Okay, sound good? Okay, so Melissa, I am going to attempt to share screen. This will be technology challenge number 1. Let's see if you see what I see. Do you see the presentation?
Yep, we do. And I think you just need to now set it to
Put it in.
presenter mode.
Okay, there we go. And I am going to lose a little bit of visibility just on seeing because of the presentation mode. But Melissa, please stop me if there is any questions on the chat and stuff, if you can help me out with that.
Okay.
Okay. So like I said, one of my biggest...
Actually, I'm so sorry. Is there any way you can expand the slides? Actually, just like maximize the whole window.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can also yeah, where's that slide mode button?
That's better.
That's better.
Yeah, that works. Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, and that way I can still see everybody as well. So that will work. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Like I said, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the day in the life of procurement and what you may see as you're interacting with procurement departments with the companies that you're working with. So our department specifically is separated into 6 functional areas. They're symbolic on the rings on the screen and are all interconnected with one another. And what we really do within our enterprise procurement group is we focus on the goods not for resale. There's a separate and unique department that does oversee the responsibilities of the goods for resale. So think of all the food products that you see on our shelves. That's separate and distinct for what EPG is responsible for. And there's some very smart people that help us with that space. So in the rings, EPG helps inform our business on important market trends. You see in the news today and over the last 4 weeks, tariffs is a big part of our focus these days. We do industry research, and we also bring back to the business the who's who within the supplier community through our strategic initiatives and procurement analytics team. A big part of what we do is we discover our supply base and understand who is in the market. EPG creates, in collaboration with our business stakeholders, category plans that set out the priorities for each and every year. And every vendor we work with, we enter into a contract agreement. This not only describes you as a supplier and what you're responsible for, but also describes the key obligations that Loblaw would need to have to ensure beneficial and successful business arrangements. After you're enabled as a vendor, our last 3 rings focus on transacting through our technology, ensuring that we live in a continuous improvement mindset, continuing to ensure that we check our policies, governance, and compliance requirements. And lastly, we have check-ins with our supply base through our SRM program, making sure we hear back from our vendor community, discuss innovations and new product trends, and understand transparently with each other on performance. So to introduce myself further, I'm Denny Summers. I am accountable for the procurement activities of 3 large categories across the entire enterprise, plus our digital procurement technology tools we use. I fell into procurement 27 years ago, and really do have a love for the profession. One of my key qualities is fostering strong, trusting partnerships, all while navigating some complex agreements. I leverage data and analytics and strategic communications to secure outcomes for our suppliers' goals as well as our organization's goals. You will see on the next slide, that our EPG group focuses on a few key objectives. Our mission is centered around being a trusted advisor to our business partners. The business partners are the ones that make the decisions of what suppliers to use or not, with the goal of driving value, enabling innovation and transformation initiatives, and new to our pillar is the ESG program, eliminating harmful plastics, for example, in our store supplies area, reducing carbon emissions through our work with Scope 3, and culture and inclusion with our colleagues in our supply base. We do this within the 3 rings that I spoke about at the beginning, and we do this within collaborations within the areas of the business and making connections. We do this through seeking innovations, pilots, or even discovery sessions with our suppliers. So having coffee chats with suppliers that are new and emerging and understanding what their core capabilities are. A great success we've had over the last 2 years is the launch of a small supplier program, and we are constantly looking at ways that we can enable our business better. My advice to you is to understand who your client or customer is and what goals and objectives they are looking for. If you can speak to how you can support those goals and objectives, it will create purposeful connections for you and you as a supplier. So in the companies that I've worked with, in a majority of corporate enterprise procurement departments, you generally see that it is separated by category expertise. I'm giving you an example of how our department is structured and the category segmentations, but this is very different for every company that you would potentially interact with. My advice to you is to understand who in the business would be interested in your product and service and develop a relationships with them and your procurement representative. The category leads, such as myself, will be able to help ambassador these introductions and can connect you with the right individuals within the organization. The category leads are also the ones that, if you are successful in doing business with the company, will help you with your onboarding process and the things that you need to do. Our team acts as a prime facilitator, whereby connecting you with your company with the rest of the Loblaw organization at large. I'm going to put this into a little bit of context, and I hope it resonates with some of you. I would like to provide a couple examples to gain better insight into the procurement support function. So, for example, if you're a company that provides landscaping services, the category lead that you would connect to would be retail scheduled services, and they would have this appropriate subject matter expertise within that space. If you're a company that provides consulting services, for example, you would be directed to the subject matter expert within the corporate services category. And again, each of the spend categories has leads that you can build relationships up with. Within each of the areas, there is members of the team that support through the contracting process. As you become a contracting supplier with us, you will be asked to register into one of our procurement systems, Fieldglass or Ariba. Both of these systems will allow the creation of purchase orders, and it will also enable you to invoice once your product or services are rendered. Depending on what you're providing will determine the system that you transact into. Lastly, supplier relationship management, which is a process of identifying those suppliers that are critical and implementing a system and managing those relationships. Within this relationship, supplier scorecards are used to develop and maintain a profitable, metric-based relationship. Together, Loblaw and supplier will meet on a periodic basis to elaborate, innovate, and collaborate. To conclude, EPG will provide you the subject matter tools to embark on your journey with Loblaw. So I'm going to pause here if there is any questions before I go on to the next slides. So I'll just give it a couple minutes if you want to go into the chat. Or feel free to turn your mic off if you feel comfortable in doing that.
I have a question, but I'll wait till after because I think it's just like a general question.
Okay, very good. Okay, I will continue on. Okay, so the procurement process. There are key items within our process that I want to highlight. Marketing, intel, and sourcing. When we have a need or we need to go to RFP, request for proposal, we will look to the connections we make with those suppliers that would fit the needs based on our ongoing work to understand the market. We will reach out to building existing, new, or emerging suppliers. We will also reach out to partnerships like the BBPA to understand who is there. If we don't understand who is out there, we will conduct category research to understand who is in the market that will satisfy the need. The sourcing life cycle is highly collaborative with our business partners and the relevant departments, the supplier network, and procurement. In some projects that I've been participating on, there may be only one business owner. In other large complex projects, you may have multiple stakeholders that you would be involved with you. Upon success, there is a requirement to work through an agreement to mutual agreement. Importantly, we require that all vendors execute an agreement and register to our technology tools. These tools will allow us to document the commitments and efficiently pay your invoices. There's a couple key notes and advice for you when it comes to contracting. Advice number one is understand from the business or the client what is expected of you from a contracting perspective. Most enterprise procurement groups will have standard templates, and asking that question up front will give you insight on what is being expected. If you're a software or technology provider, you may have to go through additional processes related to IT security and, more importantly, in this day and age, privacy assessments during the process. It's advice that you understand those things so that you're not surprised by them as they're being requested of you. This is my final slide, which is our supplier relationship management program. And this has been evolving through the years at Loblaws. It is intended to have a 360 dialogue with our supply base and setting purposeful connections with our suppliers and our executive team on what we can do to better the relationship. This program allows us to have ongoing conversations about innovations you have, new products you may have, as well as discuss the performance and how it's working. Always keep the connection and always keep the two-way dialogue. It's how we get better each and every day. Oh, sorry, this is my last slide. I added this at the end because I knew it was probably likely a topic of conversation. So How do you connect with Loblaw? And what can you do if you want to do business with Loblaw? So I volunteer and offer myself as a connect based on me presenting to you. If there is interest, if you can just leave me a text through the chat, I will put my email address in the chat just after the presentation. You can direct it to me, and I will be sure to connect you with the right category manager within your space. Depending on where they are within their own category strategy and priorities. But you will have my commitment that I will connect you with that individual. Outside of this, in GNFR, there's many other areas that you can connect and always keep your network on. So connect with people on LinkedIn, attend conferences, trade shows, utilize BBPA, and just really exercise your network to get it in within the procurement departments. If you're looking to sell to products that are goods for resale, advice for you, visit local stores and talk to the store owners. Attend some trade shows that are food related. Embracing networking opportunities, and also LinkedIn is a very powerful tool within our space. And lastly, we do have within our Loblaw corporate website a supplier portal that you can use to as a resource as a starting point. And again, you'll see the click on for suppliers with a bit of a questionnaire that will get to the procurement group. Okay, so I've said a lot. I hope it meets the mark for everybody. Happy to take any questions you may have.
I'll kick it off. I have a couple.
Mhm.
Oh, actually, you know what? No, Delapo, you go first.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Denny, for that presentation and walking us through what the process could potentially look like. Could you please speak a bit more to the services end and maybe some of the types of services that Loblaws would engage a company with when it comes to services?
Okay, so the word this services is extremely broad, and I'm glad you're bringing that up because there is a ton of services, and maybe some that this community may not connect with. So if you think of services, the few services that are within my specific portfolio, think of marketing agencies, freelancers. Think of the space of consulting services or even temp agency services. There is many things within my existing responsibility that are service-based contracts. If you look at a few of my peers, and this is where I go back to that slide, and maybe I'll show it back up on screen. If you look to my peers, there is many services that are within our retail services area. So think of services like landscaping or janitorial or food inspection services and stuff like that. So there is a lot of services, and a lot of those services, because our store geography is across the entire country, many of these are local small suppliers that service these needs and everything like that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. I do have a follow-up, but I want to
Mhm.
make sure if somebody else has a question to get a chance to go first.
I have a question. So, let me see here. Oh, you mentioned a small supplier that was launched, a small supplier program that was launched at Loblaw. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I believe Sherry Lynn is on this call supporting me as a cheerleader. But Sherry Lynn has launched 2 years ago a program for small suppliers. quite honestly, she leads this charge very, very well. So if you are a small supplier, there's certain things we grant as benefits to you being in that small supplier program. So think of things as early payments or early invoice terms or invoice terms that are better than our standards. Think of things as, and Sherry Lynn, are you on the call hearing this? Because I'm wondering if you can go off of mute.
I know I
Hey,
don't see her name.
okay,
Your name
okay.
either.
So what I can do, Marilyn, because I think this is an important aspect, let me get the link to the small supplier program for you
Okay.
and some more details so I can speak articulate to it and you have the details. It is a fantastic program for those that are small that maybe can service 3, 1 store, 10 stores, but are really concerned about servicing the whole entire national portfolio and stuff like that. So
Okay.
we really grew that, and the community of small suppliers have embraced that significantly over the last couple years.
Okay, I'm gonna ask my follow-up question
Yeah.
now. My question is regarding the procurement process. Is it the same? Let's say, to give a bit of context, my business, we train tech sales professionals, and we're constantly looking for hiring partners that we can work with. Would that also take on the process of procurement, or would that be more a partnership with like the talent sourcing team?
Okay, can you describe sorry, can you describe a bit of your company again, just so I can understand it? I didn't pick up the.
Yeah, 100% I can.
Yeah.
And so we train people in like the B2B SaaS or B2B sales model
Okay.
in order to be able to either be like an inside sales rep or a BDR or SDR. And so I was wondering if that, when it comes to hiring and talent, if it takes the same process as procurement or it would be more with the talent team.
Yeah, so there's a couple layers of that. And I can speak a little bit more intelligently because it's within my category and
Okay.
portfolio. So um, we will use the procurement process that I described through the presentation to establish relationships with agency partners. So think of the temp agency world or even the trainers that help support the business. We will help them on those processes to establish that relationship. If it's individual contractors that are represented by an agency, and that's where I think you're getting at, that is a collaboration that happens with the talent acquisition team as well as the procurement team. There is processes that we take to onboard contract workers within our ecosystem. Does that help answer that question for you? Just want to make sure.
100%. Yeah, it
Yeah,
definitely does. And I'll be in contact to explore that further. Thanks so much.
awesome. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
There was a question in the chat. Yvonne, she said, do supplier programs encompass digital health or med tech products? I know Loblaws has a wide variety of categories covered, but I'm curious to see if there's a possibility.
Yeah, very, very good question. So, healthcare within our world has been transforming and evolving over, I'm going to say, the last 5 years. Certainly, Loblaw and Shoppers Drug Mart have been an absolute support journey through healthcare services, to our customers and to the communities that they're with. So think of things as a pharmacist previously never did vaccines. A pharmacist previously never did small ailment kind of assessments and consultation. So there is a journey with healthcare And if there is capabilities, definitely please bring your name forward. I will make sure that you get the right connections within the healthcare space because it is definitely a focus of our organization.
All right, it's awesome. And she was saying is there a small supplier option for being part of the employee benefits option? I think as part of a benefits package, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so the small supplier program really right now, because we're in year 2 of that, focuses on the goods for resale, so the products that we're selling in store. I can't comment right now because I don't know where our journey is with the goods not for resale. But there is some thinking that is happening about how we evolve and grow that program over time to the rest of the enterprise. But again, that's in very, very infancy in development.
All right, wonderful. Let's see. I think there's one. Let's see.
Hey, Melissa, I'm listening here passively, and I heard some stuff that was of interest about
Yep.
the small supplier program. So
Yep.
we're going to do a plug right now for Ready to Scale, which
Yeah,
is
perfect. There you go.
which is a program that the BBPA has in partnership with Loblaw, particularly their small supplier service department with Sherry Lynn and Christine. Many of you, if you watch our Ask a Professional Bites and Insights, you would have seen that we had them on, I think in October, speaking about Ready to Scale. Ready to Scale is similar to Rise Up in the sense that it is a pitch. I don't want to call it a competition, but it does give you the opportunity to pitch your products directly to category directors at Loblaw. You get live feedback, and we have had businesses that have been placed on the shelves. If you go into your local No Frills, you might see Taste Jamaica, which is one of our businesses. We have Made Up Beauty in Shoppers Drug Mart through their e-commerce site. There's Randy's Rotis that are featured in Loblaw stores in the frozen goods sections. So this is a very successful program that we have as a partnership between the BBPA and Loblaw. So take your learnings from Rise Up and make sure you apply them to Ready to Scale as well. And, really hone in on all the opportunities because they're not easy ones to find and they're not available to everyone. So that was my pitch. I'm going to put myself back on mute. So Danny, those questions that you couldn't answer, I got answers.
Stephanie, thank
Amazing.
you for it. And again, Sherry Lynn is been a fantastic ambassador. We've really got a success story with the small supplier program. I think we will continue to have a success story with it. And Stephanie, you mentioned a few products that are now on shelf because of that program and stuff. So things are possible, and I don't want people to be fearful that we're this big, huge, mammoth company because it does start in small pieces. And the small supplier program is certainly a way to start small and then scale up over time and stuff.
All right. Excellent. I know I see 2 more questions just quickly. Do advertising services and training and development I'm guessing of employees, are those also potential corporate services? And that's the last question. And then we'll throw to Patricia, who's waiting patiently for government procurement.
Yeah. So, Shanice, you had asked the question about the advertising. Absolutely. We do a lot of supplier relationships with ad agencies, freelancers that help support all the brands and stuff like that. So, Shanice, if you feel comfortable, feel free to send me a direct connection and I can introduce you to somebody within Loblaw Agency to have a conversation with. On the training and development, HR is one of my internal business customers. I can make a connection with the individuals within that group. We do have learning and development of colleagues that we have across the business, and again, we sometimes use third parties. We sometimes use our internal resources to help support that.
Awesome. Okay, I'm glad I was able to squeeze those 2 questions in. Thank you so much. And I feel like we've gone over 11 minutes. Denny, you've been generous with your time.
Thank you.
You know, no, thank you. And again, Scale Up. It sounds like a great next step after the Rise Up program. So thank you again, Loblaw, Denny, and have a great afternoon. And we'll go next to Patricia for government procurement. Bye, Denny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Take
Bye.
care. All right. Wow, that was awesome. And I feel like I have a vibe that a feeling that a lot of you are starting to see the possibilities of actually getting into these gigantic retailers. One question I forgot to ask was like how long it takes if all goes well, like the whole procurement process. But we can save that question for Ready to Scale. But right now we have up next is Patricia Sharika. She is amazing. So she's a graduate of Dalhousie with her Bachelor of Commerce degree. I saw that she's an associate producer. She was an associate producer at CBC, which explains a lot of her creativity before getting into her business advisory services through her company, JSK Advisory. And through that business that she created and that she's the CEO of, she's able to work directly with the government, obtaining them as a client. And I would love for her to spill all the deets about how that came to be. So without further ado, take it away, Patricia.
Amazing. Okay, just to double check, you can all see and hear me okay? I'll get some nodding. Okay, perfect. What I think I would love to do is also share my screen and then dive into a little bit more about myself and again, elaborate on how I have landed in this position. So let me attempt to share my screen here. Let me know if you can see this. If I go into presentation mode.
Yep.
Can you see?
Yep.
And my slides move with me. I know that was an issue in my last call, but you can see it when the page changes.
Oh yeah, we can see it when the page changes.
Amazing. Okay, so then I think I should be okay. Amazing. So as Melissa has elaborated on, I'm going to be doing a quick session on navigating doing business with government, so B2G, and really knowing your fundamentals. Because at the end of the day, it is a complicated space to be in. And I had the opportunity when I was doing my Bachelor of Commerce degree at Dalhousie, one of my co-ops was working with Procurement Canada. So I got very early level entry. I got very early entry into being able to understand the basics of procurement, why it takes such a long time for government to do what they need to do. But at the same time, it was great for me to be able to recognize that it is taxpayer dollars that government is accountable for. So they just need to cross their T's and dot their I's. And those bureaucratic processes can become a lot. And so that's why I would love to be able to give a high level overview of what exactly that looks like. And again, how I got my foot in the door so that all of you fabulous individuals can hopefully do the same thing. So with that being said, who exactly am I? I am Patricia Chureka, as Melissa has advised. And I'm going to go ahead and quickly read off this little bio here. So I am a professional services business consultant with a particular focus on management consulting and commercialization. I did have a brief stint working in media, which is why Melissa pointed out my time at CBC. So I do have that creative mindset as well. Currently, I'm pursuing a master's level certification in software requirements analysis because again, women in STEM, we always want to support that. And I'm leveraging my extensive experience as a fractional chief commercial officer for multiple AI and software companies across Canada. So for anyone who's not familiar, fractional CCO essentially means that I'm a facilitating management consultancy, but allowing for startups to be able to have essentially an executive level role without having to pay the executive level salary. So they can really pay as they're, raising funding, getting investment, and it allows for people to be able to get that, to navigate the transitional period from R&D to commercialization a little bit more easier. So currently with the work that I do primarily with government now is I specialize in leading complex projects and supporting ISED initiatives. So ISED is Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. Every once in a while, they issue out their mandates across Canada for what they would like to accomplish. And some of those initiatives entail digital adoption or digital advisory, management consultancy, professional services. And so that's how I really get into play. A lot of my work constitutes proposal drafting, crafting clear statements of work, which we will come back to because that is how you will be graded for a lot of the work that you do with government. And those statements of work are really when you're bidding for projects or after you've secured the projects. I have specialized training from Procurement Assistance Canada, and I have a deep understanding of public sector dynamics, and I'm currently working closely with Procurement Canada presently for additional certifications to be able to help those with disabilities or those from marginalized communities also have abilities to get access to doing business with the federal government. So in the past, I've built some strong relationships with the government of Canada, including several deputy ministers and other key officials, and I help accelerate the anticipated adoption of innovative technologies across government operations. So my past experience includes collaborating with organizations like the RCMP. This was in New Brunswick, the Nova Scotia Department of Community Services in Halifax, where I've helped them streamline some of their documentation and worked with their teams when it comes to redesigns, restructuring, while also helping them circumvent bureaucratic challenges. And so by that, because government really is a lot of paper pushing, the people on the inside also know that it's a lot of paperwork. And so sometimes when you have somebody who understands that paperwork and can help streamline it, government appreciates it, and those that are attending to those projects also appreciate it as well. And lastly, while adding continued diversity to procurement processes. And that's about me in a nutshell. So with that being said, I've added a quick picture here of some of the key individuals within the government of Canada that I've had the opportunity to be able to meet. And wherever possible, I'm happy to make introductions. So on the left side, you will see myself with the executive team from the Nova Scotia Department of Community Services. So in that picture, there's several executive directors, there's 2 associate deputy ministers, and I'm with the new deputy minister for Department of Community Services for Nova Scotia, since I'm helping them with a quick project there. And then to the right, I am with Clinton, and he is the Director General of Procurement Assistance Canada, the man who decides everything for procurement. And he's been wonderful for allowing for continued conversations with what is Procurement Assistance Canada looking for? How can we as individuals who are creating innovation really help support the areas in which they intend on buying as well? And I highly encourage going to different events where you can network with these individuals, because the moment that you put a face to the name, that is going to be your competitive advantage. And if people are taking notes, if you aren't, now's a good time. The first piece of advice I'm going to advise is that relationship building is a key aspect to doing business with the government of Canada, because they have to be so stringent with who they work with, and because innovation and businesses are driven not necessarily sometimes based on traction, which is often what you hear, but it's also based on trust. So it's a combination of that trust and the traction of what you've been able to do, but also if you're doing innovative work, there is no proof for what you've been able to do. So then it's really heavily reliant on the trust that you're able to build with these individuals. So with the team that's on the left, I've now known some of them for approximately 3 years. And so now for some of the projects that I'm getting approved, it was a 3-year period of having those conversations, going to galas, going to their networking events, hearing what their problems were, what their hurdles were with other consultants, what they wanted to do moving forward. And that process really took a long time. And so with that being said, I thought I would dive into something that's a little bit more interactive. So I just need 3 individuals. Melissa, I'll make you one. If you can come off of your mic, I will just get you all to read a quick sentence on my screen here. So I'm going to pick Melissa as number 1. Can I have 2 other volunteers just to read a sentence on my screen? Okay, I see Tamara. And is that Rochelle Rain? Okay, so we'll have Melissa first, Tamara, and Rochelle. Okay, Melissa, please read us our first sentence.
This is a really simple sentence.
Tamara.
And so is this one.
And now Rochelle.
The problem is.
Oh, okay. I don't think I have any more volunteers. That was 3, but we have a problem. we have something here that currently is not identified. I think there is a gentleman named Michael. Michael is not here right now. Melissa, Tamara, Rochelle, I apologize. I won't be able to move forward with letting you know what the problem is because unfortunately, I work for the government of Canada. I have to follow very stringent processes. I need exactly 4 people to be able to read all of these 4 sentences. And at the present moment, we have hit a roadblock. I cannot do anything else from this point because unfortunately, this is how government works. And eventually you experience that over and over and over until one attorney later, many months later, somebody pops back up and is finally able to help drive that forward, in which you're able to learn that the problem is that sometimes when working with the government, processes can be really slow. And a lot of times it seems unnecessary because between the 3 of us, ladies, we could have quickly read all of these sentences, but we hit a roadblock because of the specific infrastructure that's in place and it needs to be adhered at all times. So that's the other key aspect that I wanted to highlight is that sometimes it's so simple what you're trying to do. You need to sell toilet paper to the government of Canada. You need to buy a chair. It gets more complicated with tech and IT, but even the smallest of products or services still require the same level of paperwork, and having patience and understanding that you're going to be stuck in this I'm waiting is going to be one of the things that you need to start building, I guess, a thick head around and a lot of determination, because you just need to have the patience in knowing that eventually you will get the answer that you need. And so with that being said, I wanted to move into, and I know I'm going to cover a lot and I want to be mindful of time. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. And then if people have questions, you can certainly let me know. The basic process when you're doing business with the government of Canada that they follow is this. These are the key terms that you should need to know. Again, if anyone's writing anything down, this is great for you. You can Google them a little bit later if you want more context. Essentially with RFIs, it's when they are starting in government to seek out a solution that they need. The issue is when they approach you as a potential vendor or buyer, you get all excited. Oh, this is great. They want to work with me. But really, as the government of Canada, if they're doing an RFI, and sometimes they do it informally by just asking to have a couple questions with you, the purchaser really doesn't have enough information to actually write a detailed request to work with you. So they're not committed to buying. And a lot of people, when they're new to working with the government of Canada, they think that that request for information means I've locked down this project. Okay, great. It really isn't. And it's likely that you're now at the starting of the process, and you should congratulate yourself because the fact that they consider you reputable enough to talk to them is already a milestone that you have hit. The next, they go into really that request for information or registration of interest. And that's the continued engagement, maybe bringing on additional individuals from different departments to be able to consult with them. They're not committed yet, but at this point, they're really considering you to be able to advance forward. Now, when you move into the RFP stage, that's when you can do your little happy dance, because once they are asking for a specific proposal, it means at this point, they're seeking solutions-based submissions to meet their needs. And they now trust you from the first 2 steps to be able to advise them properly. And so this is mostly suited for professional services because at this point, again, they've navigated what they need to check off all of their boxes. Request for tender is when it gets more complicated and you need to start using softwares that also the other individual who spoke before me mentioned, like SAP Ariba and other procurement tools that they use online to be able to facilitate the process of identifying vendors as well as the actual I guess, matchmaking you with the individuals that are working in those procurement departments. And then lastly, you would have RFQ. So this is request for quotation. If at some point you have somebody within government saying, how much is this going to cost me? You have successfully navigated a lot of the areas that they have had hesitancy over. And at this point, what you need to know is, according to the government of Canada, general procurement, because it's competitive, they're really trying to focus on who can give them what they need at the lowest price, because obviously they want to be economical for the government of Canada, so people don't say you're wasting government dollars. With that being said, there's another section called sole source contracting. This is where you all need to pay attention. Sole source contracting allows for the government to not have to do a competitive process, which means that sometimes somebody from within government can just message Melissa directly, can message Marilyn, can message Tamara and say, hey, this is less than X amount of money. It gets complicated with the thresholds, but X amount of money. I noticed that you are a woman in this specific region offering this specific product. There's nobody else who's able to do that. I would like to work specifically with you. And if it's under a certain amount of money, they don't have to do the competitive process. Some of the steps that I've just mentioned in here become extremely informal. And now they're just having a back and forth conversation with you for, we want to pick you. The moment it breaches, and for Nova Scotia, it's $25,000 or more, that's when they need to start having more people come in to have more conversations, because at that point it needs to go through more of a competitive process, and they have to let everybody know, hey, we're buying this. You all have an equal opportunity to be able to work with us to be able to be qualified as the winning vendor. And so with that being said, this is really the high level of the terms that you need to understand in addition to your SOWs, so your statements of work. When you are doing your proposals, so as you're responding to an RFP, you need to make sure that you have a clear statement of work. Statements of work are really, this is what I would like to do, your strategy, this is how I'm going to do it, your execution, this is what I'm going to do if shit hits the fan and how I'm going to resolve it. This is how much it's going to cost you, and this is how much it's going to take us. So in there, you have budget, timeline, overview, strategy, and execution. They love the strategy component because execution, it's the government of Canada, they're large. They understand that large scale projects will have hurdles, will have to go through all of these iterative processes. So they really are aware that the execution might pivot, but they want to know that you've anticipated for at least how you're going to do it. 80% planning, 20% execution, and usually you move in the right direction. So I wanted to add that quickly in as well. So with this, I have included my contact information in case anybody would like for me to be able to direct them to any of my contacts that I have. But in this, I also quickly had a link that I will actually refer to right now. So if this deck gets sent out a little bit later, or Melissa, however you want to share information, I can add a few more. But the link from this one here will take you to doing business with government. So this is selling to federal government, buying from the government, and selling to other governments. And so really here, it talks to you about Canada Buys, which is a huge section that you should become familiar with if you want to do business with them. It tells you how to register to sell to the government, how to shortlist yourself, how to see when new opportunities come up. It allows for you to be able to sell your innovation to government as well. There's a program called Ideas in which they have millions of dollars to have you develop something innovative. We actually would be open to being your trial purchaser. And if we also like it, we might even be willing to help advance some of that innovative next steps that you need to do with R&D so that you're ready to go to market, because they recognize that if you have the government of Canada as one of your buyers, herd mentality. You're going to have now the private sector jump on board. You're going to have other governments jump on board. Oh, the government bought it. Let's try this. So sometimes to also bolster economic activity, the government is willing to be that first adopter and allow for you to have that ability to pivot, to iterate, so that when you go from R&D to commercialization, cool, this is set, this is good. I've had people to trial it. I've had people to give me the information back. I'm now ready to enter markets with a little bit more confidence than I had before. And then if I go back to my presentation, the other link that I also had in here is what exactly happens when you do business with the government of Canada, but then something goes wrong. It's the government of Canada. There's nobody else who's above you. So what exactly are you supposed to do? You can actually contact what's called the federal ombudsman, usually ombudsman. And really think of this as, if you've ever bought anything from Shein, and then it wasn't what you expected after looking at all the pictures, and then you went back to customer service or you had to return something back, this is exactly that. Think of it as customer service when I'm doing business with the government of Canada. So they are known as ombudsperson or ombudsman, and they are confidential, impartial, and independent conflict management professionals who work to resolve complaints when doing business with the federal government. They have different mandates depending on which office you contact. So if you're in Ontario, it might be different than if you're in Alberta or if you're in Nova Scotia, just because of the different jurisdictions. But at the end of the day, they are eager to assist you, and they want you to contact them because their jobs are to hold the government of Canada accountable. We have very few people who are willing or brave enough to think, hey, I was supposed to have gotten paid 6 months ago. You could wait in limbo, or you could go escalate that and be treated the way you should be treated, because just as much as you are offering a service, your time and what you are offering also has to be respected and reciprocated. And sometimes that can be taken advantage of if you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be doing or you're supposed to be reporting to. So this is excuse me, this is another key one for you to know, so you know how to protect yourself as well. And then with that being said, that really brings me to the end of my presentation. I know it's 2 o'clock, so I really want to make sure that we're good for time. And I just wanted to say, as I conclude, that after you start to build those relationships, they only get bigger and stronger. So in this last slide that I have with some pictures in here, I want to highlight the importance of building relationships, asking questions, and not being afraid to engage. Public officials want to have opportunities to say they've worked with people directly in the community. Public officials want to hear from you. They're busy, but they have many teams that are able to respond to your questions, and they love sometimes also PR opportunities. So they always love taking pictures, which also helps you with some of the credibility that you're trying to build as well. So in this particular image, I'm with the Chief Data Officer for the Government of Canada, Stephen Burt, to the right, who was speaking on a panel in Montreal called All In. Highly recommend if anybody is going to want to navigate any AI adoption and where the Government of Canada sits for adopting your technology. That's an event that you should go to in Montreal. And then to the left is with a member who is from the House of Representatives within Boston, because now that I have some entry with Government of Canada, next place to go is the Government of the United States, because they have bigger checkbooks. So with that being said, once you're able to get a referral from one country, now you can go to the next, and then you can just actually navigate, I'm going to say, soft standardization for now how you communicate with government. And then there are additional programs through Export Development Canada that you can also receive that allow for you to have a portal where you can see governments across the world. So now you have, governments within the EU, you have governments within, Brazil, you have governments here and here. And so ideally speaking, sometimes if you've sold to one government, there's another government department that's experiencing the same issues. And so usually you can replicate what you've been selling to government, and it sometimes doesn't need to be a one-off. And so with that being said, I see a hand that's been up, but I will stop sharing. And yes. Oh,
Hi. Hi, Patricia. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. Please, can you show us your contact again? It was very fast, and then I couldn't capture it.
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type it here in the chat for everybody to have. Patricia at Create with jck.com. And so, yeah, JCK Business Advisory is our organization. We do media advisory as well as technology. You might get redirected in case I'm ever out of office, because I get a lot of emails, but certainly feel free to send me a quick note. I'm also easy to be reached on LinkedIn. Give me at least 7 days, and then you can expect I'll get back to you. Hi, Patricia. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you, Marilyn. Please share the event I should go to in Montreal for. Yeah, yes. Okay. I will add that in here as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Actually, what I'm going to do while I wait to see if there's any more questions, I'll actually try and see if I can get the direct link versus just send you the name of the event, because then you should be able to apply. There we go, for 2025. Here it is. Tickets can be a little expensive, but sometimes if you let them know that you are affiliated with certain programs or certain accelerators, they are willing to be a little bit accommodating. So there it is. All right.
And did you say, Patricia, that this is to do with AI?
Yes. So it is the largest AI event in Canada, and it brings people from across the country, but sometimes also out of the country. And the goal, a lot of them are from the US. The goal of the event is usually to be able to pinpoint solutions that are in market, but that would be in their early adopter innovator stage, and that are still needing to have other early adopters. So there you go. I've just sent it to everybody. So the goal for the all-in event is really to do a little bit of matchmaking, because the people at that event are specifically, we are now ready to adopt your AI technology. We get that it might be new. We get that you might be, at this stage versus this stage, and then you can navigate who aligns with you the most, because they get that you're still in your building stage. Especially right now, Canada is currently aiming to be able to bolster some of its prosperity in a way that they anticipate doing that via the Canadian what is it, CCI, Canadian Council of Innovators. They're really hoping to be able to push for Canada leading in AI. As you know, the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, is Canadian. So we hold a really great space for companies wanting to test out and help you advance your AI technologies, because they know you need the data. They know that in order to build out your platforms, they need to work with you so you can build them out and teach your models. So it's a great event because the people are there ready to adopt your technology. It really reduces that education curve of, I'm a little hesitant here. I'm not sure about this. Will the AI do this? It's really just, yeah, it's okay. We get it. We want to use it. And they usually have panelists from Bloomberg, Government of Canada, TELUS Health. They bring together a lot of individuals who are decision makers, and their panels are geared towards what are the decision makers scared of? What are the decision makers wanting from the people they buy? So the great thing is that you have an opportunity to be able to talk to them directly. Quick example, when I met the chief data officer, he was on one of the panels and he quite literally laid it out. I am having a problem with having my governments adopt AI because a lot of the people working there don't know how it works. We need a younger demographic that can maybe teach us X, Y, and Z. If you're in this space, here are some avenues that you can go to tap into the US so you can bring this back into Canada. And then he even laid out, if you're here and you want to be able to work with X department. So he broke down, this is what's happening with AI in agriculture. This is what's happening with AI in social services, with the RCMP, so that you have, okay, agriculture is already ready to buy everything. RCMP ready to buy nothing. Let me maybe not waste my time educating, because I've already been told that right now this is what they're seeing across all of Canada for that adoption. So really great event for people who can go. It is expensive, but like I said, sometimes you can get the right connections there. That was the last question that I see in here. Is there an SOW slide? Oh, and thank you for the great presenting skills comment. I really appreciate it. I wanted to keep the energy alive. SOW slide. You can actually Google that with any consultant. We all do our SOWs differently. For example, I always do the overview of, this is what I last had as a conversation with X decision maker. This is my current understanding of what you want me to solve. Now let me move into my strategy, my execution, my budget, and my timeline. I found that because they're busy, they like when I say, I spoke to you 7 months ago. This is what you told me. I've attached the email. This is my understanding. It helps them quickly get back on board. So I'm going to say there's no specific way outside of how you want to structure it, except for what I just said of strategy, execution, timeline, and budget. Those are the main ones. What do you want to do? How are you going to do it? How much is it going to cost us? And how long is it going to take? Those are the key areas. And if you can hit that, then your statement of work is pretty solid. Perfect. Yeah, she's typing it out there. I do have my own template. I actually have given it to a few budding consultants from the University of Toronto when I've been doing some mentorship. So I am happy to email the one that I have used for my last project that has moved along quite nicely. In case anybody would like to see that, I'll have to redact some information, but send me an email for whoever would like to see that. I do expect a testimonial saying Patricia was able to give me some consultancy and advice for documentation as it relates to business with the Government of Canada. That would really help me out as well, just as I navigate continued support for emerging companies, specifically in this space. Any more questions that are in here?
I think people were like, the last question was just to drop your email in the chat. I can drop it as well, but I wanted to make sure you're aware.
Yeah, it was up at the top, but I'll add it again. And actually, I'll also I'm going to add the general inbox. So in case you have a specific question and maybe someone from our AI team or somebody from our media team, they can pick it up and respond to you a little bit quicker. So I've added the info one and I'm adding mine again. So there we go. info@createwithjck.com and patricia@createwithjck.com. Thanks, Marilyn. I appreciate it. All the testimonials. We all need to support each other. Really appreciate it. I think my 10-minute of questions might be up at this point. And I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the time and opportunity to speak and give you some insight as well.
That was wonderful. You clearly know what you're talking about. You're an expert in this space. Like I think it's just rich knowledge and information. Thank you so much, Patricia. And also shout out to Denny from Loblaws too. I think that was a very informative session because we went from like how to pitch like earlier today, AI, how to build your business with AI, to how to pitch. Okay, now how to get the clients in, right? How to get in front of the right decision makers. So wonderful flow today. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Patricia.
No problem. Thank you
Can't
for
wait to
having
work
me.
with you again.
Thanks, Patricia. It was
Thanks.
wonderful.
Thank you.